right, hello people watching this video. This is section 8.1. We are starting the chapter on statistics. Can you say the word statistics?
Statistics?
We had to wait like 5 minutes while we taught Ellie Mangers to pronounce the word statistics in the 6th period class because she could not do it. She was having some braces and pronunciation issues, I think. So statistics is this chapter.
Braces, not racist. Not racist.
Oh. Braces. All right. Shh. You should not be heard. You should not be here. So you should not be heard. All right. 8.1, random sampling. When we are trying to collect data, we have to first create a sample. And we want to do a random sample, which means I'm picking people randomly. I'm not like choosing like just my friends that I'm going to ask questions to. I'm choosing a little bit of everybody, okay? In order to eliminate, circle this word down here, this is bias. That word is bias. We want to avoid any bias that could occur in a sample, okay? Do you know what the word bias is? Like favoritism or something like that, right? Like, and I use the example 6th period. If I am wanting to know what the population of Blue Hill students, what their opinion is of the school lunch food, I'm probably not going to stand at the door and ask students on their way out the door at lunch what their opinion is of the lunch food, right? Who are those people going to be? Me. You. Because you don't eat lunch here, right? And what are you likely to say that?
It's trash. It's dog water.
See, he's likely to say that he doesn't like the lunch, right? So the people who are going out the door as the lunch bell rings don't even eat lunch here, and they probably think that the lunch is not very good. So I'm not going to survey just those people. I want to get a random collection of everybody's thoughts about the lunch food, so I'm not going to create a biased sample. I want to get opinions from every group, okay? So we want to get sample information so that we can look at parameters, and these have to do with the population. Okay, and we're going to talk about the difference between population and sample. So we're focused on population parameters, which could be like the mean or the average. It could be the range. It could be the variance. It could be the standard deviation. We're going to learn what all of these things are. But I don't want to survey every single person in the entire population. So I create a sample, which gives me statistics. Statistics are the same thing as parameters, but for samples instead. I don't want to survey an entire population. I want to survey just a sample of people, right? Okay. Now, difference between population and sample, because a lot of people confuse these things. So put this at the top margin and do population versus sample. Okay, population versus sample. I'm going to give you a couple different scenarios of populations versus samples because a lot of people think a population has to be every single person in the entire world, and that is not true. It just depends on what we are looking at, okay? So I'm going to say population. My population is going to be all BH students. If I'm wanting to know certain things about all BH students, I could create a sample. And let's say, because there's 300 students in Blue Hill, like kindergarten through 12, right? And I don't want to survey that many people because that's going to take me like all day. So I'm going to just sample. I'm just going to sample the 8th period algebra class. Algebra 2 class. Okay, the 8th period algebra 2 class. That's going to be my entire sample. Now, that is probably not a very good sample. Okay, but it depends on what data I am collecting, right? So let's say I'm collecting like height and weight, right? And I want to know the average height and weight kindergarten through 12th grade. Why would it not be a good idea to just sample this class? Kindergartners are like this tall, right? Not very tall. If I survey all of you guys in here, you're probably going to average out to be at least over 5 foot. Kindergartners are not 5 foot tall, right? So also, seniors are probably taller than you because boys, you probably are not done growing yet. Some of you girls might be done growing, but boys probably are not done growing, right? You probably have a little ways to go yet. So seniors are probably going to be taller than you. So if I just survey this class, it's not going to be a very good sample. But I could say that that's going to be my sample. Sample is just the 8th period algebra 2 class. All right, now, if instead my population, I'm going to give you a different scenario. Let's say my population is all Nebraska students. That's a lot of kids. Instead of sampling all Nebraska students, I could sample just the BH students, right? So do you see where my sample or my population, which was BH students, went from population to now being the sample, but they're the same group, right? So you can have the same group be a sample or a population depending on the scenario. Does that make sense? Okay?
Yeah.
So don't think that it has to be, the population has to be every single person in the entire world, right? It just kind of depends on what you're talking about, all right? So we'll see that down below, all right? Then, as soon as we've chosen who we want to ask and we've chosen our sample, we have 3 different things that we could use to collect our data. Okay, we're going to talk about the first one, which is a survey. So put number 1 here, and don't order the other ones 2 and 3, because we're going to talk about observational study as number 2. So number 1 is a survey. A survey is just asking people. Most of the time, you're asking them about their opinions. Okay, so circle the word opinion. Over here, an example of that: to determine whether a student body likes the new cafeteria menu, the student council asks, circle the word asks, a random sample of students for their opinion. You are asking someone something, right? Sometimes you might be having them fill out a questionnaire, right? So not necessarily asking them, but asking them to write stuff down, right? Okay? That is just going to be a survey. Pretty easy. People ask you that all the time when they call you up on the phone and say, what do you think about this, right? Whatever. Asking is a survey. Okay, now, this is where my examples get really good. Number 2. I'm going to go to observational study because we're going to talk about experiment last. But observational study, here we go. Here's my pitch for observational study. Girls, maybe not girls in this class, right? But girls in general like to lie about their weight. That's not like a hidden thing, right? If I go and ask a woman in general what your weight is, if you come and ask me what my weight is, first of all, I'm not going to tell you. But second of all, if you must know, I'm going to probably dock that number like 10 pounds at least, right? Yeah, that's just the way that it goes, right? So we like to lie about our weight, all right? We like to not give true answers. Or maybe we're not even lying, right? Like you boys, do you weigh yourself like every day? Do you weigh yourself once a week? How often do you weigh yourself?
Every time I get
Every
up.
morning.
So you don't weigh yourself very often,
2 times
right?
a day.
Not very often. Okay, so if you don't weigh yourself very often, maybe you're not lying, but you just don't know like exactly how many pounds you are. You might say like it's around 160 or whatever, right? So maybe you're not trying to lie, but you don't know exactly what it is, right? Okay? So rather than, and we kind of related this to wrestling, right? I wouldn't go to like Carter in the 6th period class or any of the wrestlers and say, how much do you weigh? And write that number down for their weigh-in, right? Like they could totally lie to me. And Carter's like, that's what we had to do last year with COVID. I'm like, oh, how many people lied? How many people do you think lied? Anyway, probably everyone, right? And they might not be too far over, but if they're a pound over, they're going to say that they're under weight, right? Okay? So rather than asking you your weight, if you're a wrestler, what do they make you do? Come up here and stand on the scale, and I'm going to record the number. I'm going to observe that and actually write that number down rather than just asking you, because you might lie or you might not know for sure what the exact number is, right? So you might just not tell me the truth, but you're not necessarily lying. It's just because you... Okay? So observational study, that's an example of when you might want to do that, right? If surveying you would not give you good answers, you want to use an observational study instead. Yeah? What?
Bro, they're going to be there and I'm going to do it on purpose and not wash my hands.
There you go, right? Why not? Okay. All right, last thing. Number 3 is an experiment. We're moving on. Experiment. In an experiment, the key here is that you always have 2 groups. One of the groups is called the control group. You probably have seen this in science class. Control group. And in the control group, you're doing nothing to them, right? Like you're either giving them a placebo or they are not doing anything in your placebo. Placebo. Okay, we're going to talk about that in a second. The second group is going to be the experimental group. EXP group, they're listed off to the side over here. Undergoes a change or does not undergo the change. Okay, so I'm going to say you do something to this group. Okay, here's the placebo. So if I am the maker of a diet pill, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to split you guys down the middle, but I'm not going to let you know who has the diet pill and who doesn't. But I'm going to split you down the middle, and part of the room is going to get my diet pill, and the other part of the room is going to get a placebo. So it makes you look like you're actually getting the diet pill, but you're not, right? You don't know whether you got the diet pill or you don't. And the reason why they do that, it's called a blind study, right? They give you a placebo rather than giving you the actual, like, rather than saying you don't get a pill and you guys do get a pill. Everybody gets a pill, but you don't know whether you got the diet pill or not. Because they want to take out the mental part of it, right? Like, if you think you're losing weight because of the diet pill or you're just losing weight because you're not eating, you know? Like, they want to take that variable out of consideration. There's also something called a double-blind study. Have you heard this in science class? What's the difference between a blind study and a double-blind study?
Where no one gets it.
No. In a double-blind study, okay, I'm this person standing here and I'm giving you the pill. So I'm giving you this pill and I'm giving you this pill and I'm giving you this pill, right? And you all are in a line coming and giving the pill. I don't know either whether I gave you the placebo or whether I gave you the actual pill. Does that make sense? That's why it's double blind. So you don't know which one you got and I don't know which one you got. Because if I know which one you got, I could do some sort of, like, even on accident, some sort of facial expression that would lead you to believe you got one pill versus the other pill, right? Okay? So they want me to be blind and you to be blind so that you don't know which group you're in. Does that make sense? And then they record the data from there. So that's the difference between a blind study where you're blind and a double blind study where I'm blind also,
Do you know the
right?
placebo effect can actually work? Yeah.
Yes.
Like if you have like a headache and they give you
And
like
you
a
think,
pill that doesn't
right,
work.
right, that's what they're trying to eliminate there. And then it just makes you look silly because you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better.
Imagine getting
Oh, I feel so much better. And you're getting like, you know, that happens. All right, here we go. Let's do some, we haven't even done any examples yet. Let's go. All right, the rest of this is going to go kind of fast. Determine whether each situation describes a survey, an experiment, or an observational study. That's all we're doing here. And then it says, identify the sample and a population that could be, okay? So, a band wants to test 3 designs for an album cover. Here are the options, 1, 2, 3. They randomly select 50 members of their fan club to view the covers while they watch and record their reactions. Okay, is this going to be a survey, an experiment, or an observational study?
Survey.
What tells you it's an observational study?
They're picking.
Circle the words watch and record. Now, you could survey these people and ask them which one do you like the best, right? But if you're in my fan club, right? And like, let's say you hate all 3 of them, but you're in my fan club and you want to make me happy and you're going to be like, yes, they all look so cool. But when you actually gave them to me, my first like facial reaction was like, ugh. Right? They're going to look at my facial reaction because that's going to tell you my first impression of the cover. And then I'm going to, like, if I lie to you and say, oh, it's awesome, you're going to be like, that's not what your face just told me. Your face just told me you hated that, right? So they're going to go off my facial reactions because that's going to be the most true opinion of what they presented to me. Does that make sense? Okay, so they're going off of my facial expression, watch and record their reactions because my reaction might not be the same thing as what I tell you, right? Okay, so this is going to be an observational study. And then we have to identify the sample, and we have to identify the population.
The sample is the 50 members.
50 members, what's the entire population?
Their fan club.
I'm going to say the whole fan club. I'm going to say the entire fan club.
That's what I meant.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Their fan club.
Entire fan club. So just the 50 members of the fan club, that's a sample, but the entire fan club is the population. Yeah? Good? Moving on. Next, part B, backside. The city council wants to start a recycling program. They send out a questionnaire, circle the word questionnaire, to 200 random citizens asking what items they would recycle. Survey, because I'm sending out a questionnaire. Survey. What is the sample going to be? Just the 200 citizens. Okay, what is my entire population?
The citizens.
I'm going to say all citizens. So all citizens of the certain city or group or village or whatever we're in versus just the 200 citizens that we were asked, right?
Yeah.
Okay, example 2. Now we get to decide survey, experiment, or observational study and explain your reasoning. These have not been, this study has not been done yet. But if I'm a pharmaceutical company and I'm wanting to test whether a new medicine is effective or not, which one of those 3 would you do?
Observational.
I would do
Right?
an experiment. I would separate them into groups and give one a placebo and one the actual medicine. Right? A lot of times when you're doing that, you're going to want to separate them into 2 groups to see which one works the best. So you will be, this is kind of like the gray area, you will be observing and recording the information, but at the first and foremost point of the study, you are doing something and you are separating them into groups. So that is the key there. Experimental, I'm just going to say experiment. Experiment. And how do you know when it says explain your reasoning? What I want you to do to explain your reasoning is circle keywords in there. So we are wanting to do a test, right? And when we are testing something, we're administering one to one group and administering something different to another group. That's the key word in there, test. A news organization wants to randomly call citizens, I'm missing a T, citizens to gauge opinions on presidential elections. What are you going to do? Survey. How do you know? Opinions and call. You're calling about their opinions, so you're surveying them. Okay, example 3. Now that we have the data, we are going to use this information to talk about the group as a whole. So, a random sample of the 684 students at Sanchez High School. 684 is the total number of students. Write that down. Total number of students is 684, but I don't want to survey all 684 of them because that would take all day or maybe all week, depending on how fast I work. They were asked to name the type of technology they would most likely use for learning a foreign language. So some people just use their smartphone. Maybe they'd use Google Translate, right, on their smartphone. Some people use a tablet, which is kind of like a smartphone, but just maybe a bigger screen, right? Some people use their laptop computer, and then others use a desktop computer. I did not survey all 684 of them. I only surveyed that many. How many people said smartphone? 20. How many people said tablet? 25. How many people said laptop? 15. How many people said desktop? 20. Let's add all this together. Do we get a total number? Total is 80 people. I only surveyed 80 people out of the 684 that I could have. Now, if I only surveyed 80 people, we can kind of relate these percentages back to the total, all right? It says, based on the results of the bar graph, I'm right here, based on the results of the bar graph, what is the most reasonable inference about the number of students at Sanchez High School who would likely use a, circle the word, tablet for learning their foreign language? All right, how many people said tablet to start with?
25.
25 out of 80, right? 25 out of 80 is, if you divide it, 0.3125. That is about 31%. A little over 31% said that they would use a tablet. Okay? Now, if I relate that back to the 684, how many of the 684 would say tablet? How do I figure that out?
Multiply it by it?
Wouldn't you multiply? Yes, you're right. So I'm going to multiply by 684. It is what?
213.75.
213.75. And that is how many students? So we are going to go 214. We're going to round up to 214 students would say tablet. Okay? Now, it's probably unlikely that exactly 214 would say tablet, but it's probably close to that, right? 214. Maybe 220 would say that, maybe 210, something like that, whatever. But 214 about would say tablet, right? Okay? Last thing, we're identifying bias. Circle that so we know what we're looking for, identifying bias. Okay, and again, bias is like things that would lead us to wrong conclusions. Jamar, listen to who he's surveying. Jamar is surveying a random sample of his high school film club. Who is he surveying? His high school film club. And the film club, out of the film club, he found that 30 out of 40 people also play video games. So the film club said 30 out of 40 play video games. That as a percentage is 75%, correct? That as a percentage is 75%, okay? So he uses that survey to conclude that if his class or if his school has 800 students, 75% of that would end up being 600 people. So he concludes that if there's 800 students in the school, about 600 of them play video games. Is that true or not true? Because that's 75%.
No,
Why would that not be true?
because it's a
Because
film
only did the
club.
film
He
club.
only surveyed the film club. Are they more likely or less likely to say that they play video games?
More likely.
You think the film club people are more likely than the average person to say that they play video games?
They're
This is like me standing at the door waiting for the people who are coming out of the lunch line to go outside to go eat lunch or go somewhere else to eat lunch and asking them what they like of the school lunch. It's biased, right? I don't like, they're not going to have accurate
I'm pretty sure
percentages,
most
right?
of the people that eat the school lunch
So-
don't like the school lunch.
Not
I don't even eat
just
school
survey, not just survey film club. Because that's going to give us biased results, right? Film club people are going to be more likely to play video games than the average person, right? So the majority of your homework assignment, we're going to do all on both sides, but they go really fast. The majority of your homework assignment is going to be just identifying survey, experiment, or observational studies. Let's help you get a start. Odds are all on both sides.
You don't have the paper?
You don't have the paper? It's back there.
It wasn't up there.
It wasn't?
No, it was
No,
just
this
there.
would know.
Or are you kidding me?
No,
If
it
it
was
was back
just
there,
the
Reese
paper.
would have had the whole assignment done by now.
It's right there,
It was on.
right?
It was,
What?
it was not back there whenever I
It
came
was
in.
hiding under the
It was
other
hiding under the other one. Oh man. Oh man.
You should grab me one.
Why?
I don't wanna get up. He's gonna grab me.
There they go.
I don't want to get up.
There they go.
Mostly because I don't want to be in that group.
I don't want to get up either.
But you did. So I thought I'd ask.
Sorry.
Wow.
Okay.
I see how it is. I see how it is. After I let you borrow my calculator countless times.
All right, so we're gonna do all both sides, but let's get you a start just so you see what we're talking about when it says explain your reasoning. Number 1 on skills practice, you have to decide survey, experiment, or observational study. So number 1, you want to find opinions on the best computer game to buy. What are you gonna do?
Survey.
You're gonna ask people, and how do you know? And it says explain your reasoning.
Opinions.
All you need to do is circle keywords.
Opinions.
Opinions. So when it says explain your reasoning, just circle the word in there that tells you you're going to do a survey. Okay? So number 1 is done for you. Okay? Keep going. And survey, experiment, observational study, that's what like the majority of this assignment is. Okay? All both sides, there you go. Get a start.